Hello YouTube, welcome to another League of Legends guide. Today we're going to cover top lane Riven.
What is broken can be reforged.
Riven is a high damage top laner with a lot of mobility. She even has a shield that scales off of her attack damage, which is part of the reason we can go for such a high damage build and still be at least a little bit tanky. We are then also a mana-less top laner, which is a great thing because we don't ever have to worry about conserving our mana. Due to her kit, she's then one of those champions with very high outplay and snowball potential, which is of course part of the reason she's so fun to play. Now although she is a solid champion, she does however lack a built-in sustain, and so until we get a Ravenous Hydra, sustaining through the lane can sometimes be an issue. Since her tankiness is based off the shield we do have, which is based off of AD, we are very weak against Chain CC, because of course we can't put up that shield. Now she is also very hard to master. She has to do things like animation cancels and all sorts of stuff other champions don't have to worry about in order to be effective. If she then also falls behind, she's going to be very lackluster because she's one of those champions that needs to get a lead and start snowballing. For my masteries, I go 18 Cunning and 12 Resolve, grabbing Thunderlord's Decree as my keystone mastery. Riven is one of those champions who really scales off of cooldown reduction, so we can't afford to get the armor penetration in the Cunning side, we have to get that 5% extra CDR. And the rest of the masteries, we focus on getting a bit more movement speed so our roams are a little bit faster, some extra damage, and some increased sustain. For my runes, I go 9 attack damage reds, 9 armor yellows, 9 cooldown reduction blues, 2 attack damage quints, and 1 cooldown reduction quint as well. Now these runes in total will give you 10% CDR, which is a really strong thing to have in that early game. Generally, there's going to be enough items for you to pick up that 40% CDR you do need from your items, but this will give you that 10% CDR earlier on, so you're pretty strong even early on in the game. Instead of Ionian Boots, by taking these runes you could also get something like Merc Treads instead, which could be more beneficial in the game. As for your summoners, well, the first one you want to grab is Flash. Flash can allow you to get into a better position in a team fight, so you can be much more impactful. It's then also a very reliable escape, so you don't really have a choice but to take it. Now Teleport's also a really good pick if you are in a hard lane. If you end up getting pushed out of your lane early, you can just back, buy an item to help you survive, and then teleport back. It's then also great if you're looking to split push since you can make it to team fights and objectives by teleporting in. Now Ignite is also a great option since Riven is a champion who wants to get snowballing. You're not going to have as much map pressure as if you did take teleport, but instead you will have a lot more kill pressure in the lane. So now let's look at those abilities, starting with your passive, Runic Blade. Riven's Blade gains a charge for 5 seconds every time she casts an ability, stacking up to 3 times. Each of her basic attacks consumes an available charge to deal 25% to 50% based on level bonus physical damage. So this passive is really strong since it does scale off of your AD. Generally, you want to use your animation cancels to save as much time and get off those basic attacks during your combos. Now we're going to be talking about that later on in the guide, but generally you want to follow up every basic attack with a Q, so this will proc over and over again. But now let's jump into our Q ability, Broken Wings. Riven dashes towards the target nearest the cursor or in the direction she is currently facing and lashes out at all enemies in front of her, dealing physical damage. Broken Wings can be cast twice more within 4 seconds, with the timer resetting after each cast. The third then damages all enemies around Riven in an expanded radius, knocks them up, and can also be used to pass over certain instances of terrain. Each cast of Broken Wings then resets Riven's auto attack timer. So first, I'm just going to mention that you can use this to escape over terrain like it does say. Use your first charges of Q, and then aim your next Q to go over the terrain and escape from an enemy. Now since this does reset your auto attack timer, this is a great ability to combo with your passive, so you do get off those empowered auto attacks. By using a simple Q auto attack, Q auto attack, Q auto attack, you get off some very quick attacks and do a lot of damage in the process. This is a very strong ability, and we usually max it first unless we are in a very hard matchup, in which case we will max our E. But now let's look at that W, Key Burst. Riven's sword emits a burst of runic energy that shocks nearby enemies, dealing physical damage and stunning them for 0.75 seconds. So this ability here is very self-explanatory. It stuns targets, so when you want to stun the target, use the ability. It's very effective in trades. Now generally, although this does have a 100% bonus AD ratio, we will have to max this one last, as our E is very good for trading and our Q does more damage overall, so unless we're in a very favorable matchup when we don't really need the shield from our E, then we have to leave this one for last. Now let's look at that E ability, Valor. Riven dashes towards the cursor and gains a shield that absorbs incoming damage for 1.5 seconds. So as I said, this is possibly going to be one of the things we want to max first if we are against something like a Pantheon or a Quinn, something that can poke us over and over during the lane phase. With the base shield strength increase and the cooldown going down, it can be very effective to max first in those types of matchups. This is then also generally our best ability for hiding our attack animations. You can use your E combined with either your Q, W, R, or even a Tiamat to hide that attack animation and save you a lot of time, resulting in more damage in a shorter amount of time. That yet again will be covered in the attack animation section of the guide, but this is a very fantastic ability, and since it does scale off of your bonus AD, the shield can actually be pretty huge. So here is the first part of your R, Blade of the Exile. Riven transforms her sword for 15 seconds, gaining 20% AD as bonus attack damage, gaining bonus attack range, and increase in broken wings and ki bursts radius. For Blade of the Exile's duration, Riven can then use Wind Slash once. So this ability is obviously just fantastic. You gain bonus AD and also increase the range of your broken wings and your ki burst stun, so it's insanely good in duels and team fights. Now when you want to use this ability, it does kind of have an annoying cast animation, so you want to either use it out of sight or combo it with your E to completely hide that animation so you don't actually stop for a short duration. But let's look at that second part, Wind Slash. Riven unleashes a wave of energy in a cone, dealing physical damage to all enemies hit, increasing by 4% for every 1% of the target's missing health, for a maximum of 300% increase at 75% of target's missing health. So since this is based off of target's missing health, generally you want to use it as an execute. Use the first part of the R with that increased AD to get their target low, and then hit them with the Wind Slash when you're certain you can finish them off. So for that skill order, we want to put a point into our ultimate whenever we can at 6, 11, and 16. Now if we are in a normal matchup, we want to max our Q first for all that damage it does provide, and then work on our E for its really good shield, and then max our W last. If we are unfortunately against a really hard matchup like something like a Teemo or a Quinn or a Pantheon, then we'll have to max our E first to deal with that poke damage. And finally, sometimes we don't even really need our E, we only really need it as a gap closer, so we can max our W second instead of our E, but I do like the E's reduced cooldown, and I do like it for the added mobility, so this is not something I do too often. Furthermore, you don't always want to start with your Q ability. In certain matchups like the Pantheon one, yet again, you will have to start with E at level 1. Now let's look at some animation cancels, starting with our auto attack and Q combo. For this combo, all you want to do is use your broken wings as soon as your auto attack lands. Riven's auto attack kind of has a swing through after it does land, and you can use your broken wings to cancel this animation. Next we have some where we use our E, Valor, to cancel some animations. So first we have our Valor plus Blade of the Exile. By using your Blade of the Exile right after you use Valor, it will cancel your ultimate's cast time, so you can keep moving. Then you have your Valor plus Broken Wings cancel, where you use your Broken Wings right after Valor. You will cancel the full animation and cover much more distance, and this is your standard engage combo. Now you have your Valor and Ki Burst combo. This will cancel your Ki Burst animation, but honestly, it's not that long anyways, and it's not something I do too often. I only do it if I'm chasing and I want a really fast stun. Last here, you can even cancel Ravenous Hydra's or Tiamat's animation on Riven. And you can actually do it with both your Valor or your Broken Wings. One example combo if you wanted to go in for a stun would be your Valor, Tiamat, Auto Attack, Ki Burst combo. It's very simple to do. All you have to do is use your Tiamat after you do use your Q or your E. For our first combo here, we have our Auto Attack and Broken Wings combo. All we have to do is use an Auto Attack, cancel the animation with our Broken Wings, and do it 3 times. For an all-in Ultimate plus Tiamat combo, we want to close the distance with our Valor and use our Tiamat right away to cancel that animation. Quickly auto attack, activate Blade of the Exile, and then use Broken Wings and auto attack, and do that 2 more times. Whenever you do get the enemy low, you can then use your Wind Slash, the second part of your ultimate, to execute the enemy. Your early game will differ a lot depending on the type of champion you're fighting. If you're against somebody very weak early game, then you'll want to max your Broken Wings first and try to get a kill or push them out of lane. When you're against somebody who struggles at farming under turret, you can push them under the turret rather easily with your Q and then focus on last hitting. If you are against somebody really hard like Pantheon or Quinn, then you'll want to max your Valor first and survive through the lane phase. Usually, you're going to scale a lot better than these types of champions anyways. Now, if you are using Broken Wings, make sure you do cancel the animation with your auto attack so you do output more damage. If your team's ahead in the mid game, then you'll want to try to snowball the game by taking objectives. You can join your team whenever they go for one with your teleport, or you can always roam down if you did take Ignite. If your team, however, is losing but you are winning lane phase, try putting a lot of pressure on that top lane and force the enemy to pay more attention to you while your team catches up. If a team fight breaks out on the map, then you want to help them with your teleport. Riven is one of the best champions at flanking, and if you catch the enemy off guard, you can get yourself multiple kills. In the late game, there's going to be a lot more team fights, and you have a few different roles that you can fill. First, you'll want to try and kill the enemy AD carry or AP carry if possible. Generally, a team will have multiple ways to peel for them, however, but it does depend on the enemy team comp. If your AD carry is something that generally needs a lot of peel like a Vayne, then your job is pretty much going to be to peel for them unless you are able to get to the enemy backline. Also remember, you are a pretty good split pusher, so you always have that option as well, but there are a bunch of champions that will outscale you, like Jax for example, so be careful. So let's cover some hard matchups, and first up here, we have Renekton. In this match, you pretty much always want to start cloth armor and health potions. You also have the option of maxing Valor first, but it's not always required. Your job is to survive in the lane and get whatever CS you can. He is a lot stronger than you early on, but you outscale the absolute shit out of him, so just wait until the late game. Quinn is another matchup that I'd recommend going cloth armor and health potions. In this matchup, you definitely want to max your Valor first to deal with her abuse. I do recommend that you also take teleport because she's probably going to push you out of lane most likely, and you don't want to miss all that CS. Shield her harass as much as you can and get whatever farm you can as well. Next up, we have Jace, and you need to dodge his empowered Q or you're just going to lose the lane. Max your Valor first in this matchup to deal with that early game damage. When you are level 6, you should be able to all-in him unless you've managed to get no farm at all, and make sure you engage as soon as he goes into his range form so we can't switch into his hammer form for another 6 seconds. For our second set of hard matchups, we first have Kayle, and we want to start with Valor in this matchup and play more passively unless we know her Righteous Fury is in cooldown. If she's going for a full AP build, then I would recommend getting an early Hex Drinker as well to help deal with that damage. You can either max your Valor or Broken Wings depending on how aggressive she actually is. So next here we do have Teemo, and against a Teemo you want to make sure you're shielding the damage from his Blinding Dart. At level 3 you are actually able to kill him, but you do have to bait out the blind before you go for that all-in. Get a Hex Drinker yet again if he does go AP, but if not, rush that Ravenous Hydra for wave clear and to all-in his ass. So last here we have Irelia, and she's a hard matchup because of her stun. If you can bait the stun out of her onto your own shield, then you should win that trade. If you took Ignite in this matchup, you want to use it at the start of the duel to stop her crazy sustain. You can win the trades up to level 3, but at that point, it gets a hell of a lot harder. So now let's get into that item build, and we want to start with either a longsword and health potions, or cloth armor and health potions if we are against a hard lane. For our core items, we have the Black Cleaver, Yumu's Ghostblade, and Ravenous Hydra. The Black Cleaver is a great item for shredding armor and getting 20% CDR, which works so well on Riven. For 10% more CDR and that awesome activate, we have the Yumu's Ghostblade, another item we need in our core. Then for the awesome burst it provides, and of course some sustain as well, Ravenous Hydra is an excellent item. Now at this point, with our runes, we'll already be CDR capped, so for our boot options, we have the Merc Treads, of course we're against a high AP/CC team, and Ninja Tabis against a high AD team. For our offensive item pool, we have the Bloodthirster and the Death's Dance, but honestly I don't take Death's Dance too often because we already are CDR capped, and therefore I do prefer the Bloodthirster. If we're against a very tanky team, then we could take the Mortal Reminder or the LDR. For our defensive item pool, Guardian Angel is definitely one of the best ones. Coming back to life is awesome. Maw and Sterox are both then great items as well, as they do give a shield, but make sure you don't pick up both because they don't stack. Mercurial is then great for getting out of crowd controls, and Spirit Visage is great because we do have a bunch of lifesteal, and that will increase our sustain. Then finally, if we do need to pick up some armor, we have the Randuins or the Thornmen. So for that standard full build, we take our core, then add the Mercurial Scimitar to get out of any CCs, and then we finish it off with the Guardian Angel. We already have a ton of damage from our core items, so generally, in the end, I do pick up some defensives. But that covers our top lane Riven guide. I hope you guys did enjoy the guide, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you did. You can also visit us on our website, egamingtv.com, or find us on Twitter at egaming_TV, which is where I do my skin giveaways. But thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next champion guide. Peace!
Here we go, you and I, destination who decides. Take off, crash, land, I don't wanna lose tonight. Take a chance, let it go, will we make it, never know. I'm so glad I kept you, could have left you, let's make room to grow. Here we go, you and I, destination who decides. Take off, crash, land,